I'm going to do sketching a graph of a rational function, problem type 2. Okay, so in this problem you can see they're giving you a rational function and they ask you to draw the asymptotes and plot at least 2 points on each piece of the graph. And then click this graph icon. Okay, so remember when you see these things as you're doing these problems, how do I draw an asymptote anywhere in the graph? It's not a bad idea to click on these and get some instruction, and it'll walk you through those steps. Okay? All right. So for this problem right here, one of the things I want you to realize is when you see a rational function like this, one of the first things you should usually do is try to factor this and see if you can simplify it. And so you can see here that if I try to factor this, I can't think of two numbers that multiply to give me -5, that add to give me a -1. So that took care of that. So when that doesn't work, what you're going to do is you're going to actually plug this into long division. So you're going to take x squared minus x minus 5 and divide it by x plus 1. So let's do that over here. Okay, so we're looking for what multiplied by x gives me an x squared. Well, that's going to be an x. And so we multiply this x by both of these, so x squared plus x. So remember, normally you'd subtract both of these, so I like to change the signs and add them together. You make less mistakes when you're adding, so that gives me a -2x, bring down the -5, and x times what gives me -2x, and that would be a -2. So multiply that, and I get -2x minus 2, change the signs and add them together, and this gives me a -3. And so this is the remainder. So basically what we're doing is we're rewriting this as x minus 2 and then -3 over x plus 1. Okay, if you're looking at the ALEX explanation, it's going to go in and it's going to show you what happens as you pick bigger and bigger values for x and plug it into this function. And then it's also going to compare what happens if you just plug in x to x minus 2. It turns out as the bigger and bigger values you get, guess what? The smaller and smaller this becomes. So what happens is this is your asymptote, this part right here. Okay, so y equals x minus 2 is a slant asymptote. Then we also know from this original function, right, you have another asymptote because the denominator cannot equal 0. So if you take x plus 1 and you set it equal to 0, okay, you get x equals a -1. And so this is your vertical asymptote. Okay, so these are the two asymptotes we needed. And then basically, if you take this vertical asymptote, so we set up this xy chart here, and then we're going to pick x values to the left of a -1 and so a couple values to the right of a -1. So we could plug in a -3 and a -2, and then 0 and a +1. So then we plug that in. You can go ahead and plug it into the original equation here. And so a -3 squared is 9. 9 minus a -3 is going to be 9 plus 3. So -5, and then that's going to be all over a -3 plus 1. And so that turns out to give you a -7/2. Now you can repeat the process for each of these, and once you do that, you'll end up getting these values in your chart. So save us some time, because I know you all can do that. So now we're going to take these values and these asymptotes and plot them on our graph. So y equals x minus 2 is our slant asymptote, so we want to click on this slant asymptote button here. And we're going to graph this line. So we're going to start with the y-intercept, which is a -2. And your slope there is 1. So we're going to click on that. And there we just graphed that. It was that easy. Okay. So then our vertical asymptote, click on that, and that's going to be x equals a -1. So that's right here. Now we've got these two values. We want to plot our points. Okay, so the point -3 and -7/2, I'm going to use this plot a point anywhere feature. So anytime I'm using fractions, you want to use this feature. So I'm going to plug that in, -3 and a negative 7/2. Plot that point. And then I'm going to go ahead and plot -2, -1 using the little pencil button, and then I can do 0, -5 as well that way. And then I can go ahead and plot the point 1 and -5/2 using this button as well. So 1 and a -5/2. Now once I've got those points, okay, I can go ahead and use this graph button, and it'll graph the curve for me. So the thing you need to remember here is that if your points don't turn out, if you have a point here and a point here, you probably made a mistake somewhere. So go back and recheck your work.